Hi everybody, I'm Joey Paul and I'm an indie author, and today we're going to be talking about dealing with self-criticism. See, I get a lot of questions, but I've also had a lot of experience with self-criticism, so I wanted to do a video about how you could deal with it. So I'm going to give you some tips and some pointers and go from there. So one of the things you need to remember is that everybody has moments of self-doubt. Everybody, every writer or otherwise, whether they're an artist or a doctor or a lawyer or checkout operator, they all have moments of self-doubt, and it's next to impossible to get rid of it completely. What you need to do is to be able to deal with those moments and have them not impact your work. And it's okay to doubt yourself. It's okay to realise that you're not perfect. It's just not fine to allow it to control the work you do. And that's when you have to start thinking of ways to deal with self-doubt, and you have to start thinking of ways to work past the criticism. So how do you do that? There are so many ways you can deal with self-criticism, but here's a few I use. One, I'll take the criticism. I'll look for evidence from both sides, i.e. I say to myself, my book is crap. So I'll balance out the different arguments for and against, and then deal with actual facts rather than thoughts that hold no water. So like, if I think my book is crap, I'll look at both reviews and feedback and other stuff like that, and I'll use those as my facts rather than the thoughts that I have. It's a technique that I was taught by a therapy course, but it is a really effective technique because it's a way to tell yourself, hey, actually, you know what, these thoughts are just thoughts, that doesn't mean they hold water. And that's just one way of doing it. I remind myself that I don't have to be perfect. My first draft doesn't have to be perfect. I don't need to be a perfect writer because that's a completely unattainable goal, and no one can manage that. So if I have a moment of self-criticism and I realise that the criticism is invalid, or even if it is valid, I have to tell myself, that I'm not perfect, but that's okay because nobody is perfect. And my first draft doesn't have to be completely perfect, because if you get into that line of thinking, then it can lead to things like writer's block, and it can lead to things where you feel like you can't write anything unless it's perfect, and that's not going to happen. So basically what happens is you don't write. Number 3, I remind myself of the positives, like a good review or a good writing day, anything that shows me that I am doing a good job. So like, I have all my good reviews saved on my computer so that when I have a bad day, I can go back and look through them and remind myself that these are people who enjoy my work, who can show me that I do good work. Number 4, if need be, I talk to friends who've helped me see the positive in my work before, because they're able to tell me in facts rather than in my own thoughts. It's a bit similar to number 1, but it gives an outside view of what I'm doing. And number 5, I remember that not all criticism is valid. Some of it may be, but it's important to recognise what isn't and what is, so that you don't get bogged down in it. I read something recently that said criticism is when you are negative for the sake of being negative, nitpicking, and critique is when you tell someone how they can improve. So sometimes there's criticism that is just a case of, you're a crap writer, you shouldn't write books, you should do this, you should do that. And that's just negative, it's not really giving me anything to go on. Whereas a critique is more like, I really liked what you did with XYZ, but this character acts a bit like passive, so maybe if you could change this part of them and this part of them, that's more critique. And it's important to recognise that you do that to yourself too. It's not always out from outside sources. I deal with it myself. I have anxiety, I have depression. I deal with it myself a lot in the fact that I am very critical of my own work, and I feel like it has to be perfect for it to be good. And so I have to remind myself that, hey, if you're going to be critical, then at least give some critique on it too. And that I have to remind myself that not all criticism is actually valid sometimes. Like in point 1, if you dissect it, sometimes it's just you having a bad day. So how do you move past that if you've done all that? You remind yourself that you need to keep writing. A good writer once told me that the world needs your story, and I agree with them. The world needs your story, and that you are the only person in the world who can tell that story the way it's told. Being critical of your own work is a good thing, but sometimes it goes too far. If it's got to the point where you're unable to write because you're so desperate and so wound up and so anxious about being perfect on the first try, then you need to take a step back and deal with that, because otherwise it's going to have a massive impact on your work, and not always in a good way. Not at all in a good way. So you need to move past it, and in moving past it, which is, you can do it with one of the steps I spoke about before, moving past it allows you then to open up the floods of creativity and actually get back to writing, because that's what you want to be doing. You're a writer, therefore you want to write, and you need to acknowledge that you're not perfect and that you're going to make mistakes, and that as long as you learn from those mistakes, then there really isn't a problem. So points to remember: criticism is a good tool when used right. It's when it's overused that it becomes a problem, and it's an easy trap to fall into. While being critical of your work leads to problems to better writing, doing it to the point that it inhibits your writing is a bad thing. So be kind to yourself and realize that you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to keep writing. So that's all I've got time for today. If you want to get in contact with me, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or you can contact me on Facebook, on Tumblr, on Goodreads, on Twitter. My books are available on Amazon in ebook and paperback. You can pre-order Dying Thoughts Fifth Secret, which is due out on May 15th, which is getting ever closer. And don't forget to check out the Dark Side of Fiction 2017 event, where I will be signing books in October, all the links for which are listed below. Thanks for watching. Bye.